society, as we established last time, that baggage tends to build around the body, the mind, and the soul. It's necessary that we put our energies into doing the things and doing the activities that necessary to shake them off. You know, anybody during dreams this week got any idea as to what they can do to let go of baggage? Remember, the universe is always working with you, so you just have to be open to realize.
For me, I think one of the questions that came up is with the mind, right? Because
Yeah,
you have the mind that is in constant chatter. And, you're told like when you want something, um, like almost like daydream about it and kind of bring it into fruition, if you may. But then how when is the daydream versus when is the chatter, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because I mean, you would know the negative chatter, but then just for example, you say, well, oh, something came to me to do X, Y, and Z. Or you're sitting there and you're going through something, and it's like your mind playing, yes, do this, but I don't know if I'm really supposed to do this, but so how you discern, that fantasy and wishful or daydreaming to attract things versus stopping the chatter, if you kind of
well,
understand what I'm saying.
totally understand. And for everyone understanding, everything to do with your imagination is good. Yeah. So where imagination is concerned, there's no real chatter. What's happening is that you are pulling from the environment ideas, thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and each one of them has a seed that you could plant within and allow it to grow. So there's no real chatter there. So if a negative one comes or a positive one comes, you could grow either one. You're trying to get into understanding where there's no right or wrong, good or bad, positive or negative. There's only what works best for you. And your imagination will go there. You wouldn't sit and imagine building a ship, a cruise liner, because it's not within your periphery, but you will focus on the things that are around you that necessary for your own growth and development. This is why there's no bad one, so to speak. So it's just really trying to build on that constant dynamic within yourself. So if you're daydreaming during the day, it's just because your mind in another space. It's our duty to keep the mind as mindful as possible. And mindful, that activity is being always in the present moment. If you're in the present moment, yes, your mind is full. If you're not, then you will have the space for daydream. So you want to daydream with a focus and not just sit and let the dreams come when you have something to do. Understood?
Yeah.
So that is why it may appear to be chatter. Chatter is also when the way that you're putting the dreams into realization, you'll always be impacting based on what you have already identified and defined within yourself. If this is clear within you, there's no chatter. If it isn't clear, you get all the spaces for chatter. That's just the way that it functions and it flows. You are part of the entire universe. You create your own world. That's just what it is. So all along, remember, even while you're living, baggage. So all along, if you have things that you need to deal with on an internal sense, you will be either removing baggage or collecting baggage, even around the daydream.
Mm. So another thing that came was like, okay, which is true. We
Yeah.
don't live in the now, right? We either live with true the chatter, true life experience. We either live, most people I would say, live in the future or live in the past. Because
Yeah.
it's always about what I have to do tomorrow, what I have to do next week, or remembering past things and never really living in the now, right? So how that kind of go back to the daydreaming part. If you're supposed to live in the now, how does
Mm-hmm.
daydreaming come into, or how could you decipher the now from the daydream? If you kind of understand it, I don't think I explained it clearly.
Trying to understand.
You're supposed to live in the now, so be
Yes.
present, right?
Yes.
But you're also hearing that, like, to attract things to you, you kind of go back to daydreaming it to manifest it into fruition, right?
Right.
But you're supposed to live in the now. So living in the now, daydreaming is part of the now.
Well, that's just what we were discussing. The daydreaming aspect of it would happen when your mind wanders. But if you're focused, if you're living mindfully, you would be able to spend time daydreaming because you decide, I am going to daydream now, which should be more or less like meditating.
Hmm.
So you focus your energy towards doing that. When your mind drifts off in a daydream, there's so many other things that could be taking place there. But once you have a deliberate intention, you have an actual focus behind the daydream, or the imagination, as we should say, then you could create what you want. So it's just to articulate it. The better you get at you imagine the setting that you want for your life, the relationship that you want for your life, the abundance you want for your life, whatever you choose, the better you get at imagining it. Once you could imagine it, and you could draw it to you, and you will get the keys exactly where you need to go, what you need to do, because of how well it's articulated to you, because you get better at it. Anybody else? Any other question? Before we get into baggage again?
I had a question which was going to kind of ride on, I think, was Lisa's question.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure if I'm going to ask the same question I asked last time. But is it possible, I
Yeah.
suppose if it's possible, to consciously not know what you want, or want, okay, you make a statement to yourself. You tell yourself
Mm-hmm.
X, but yet a thought keeps returning and returning and returning. And the
Mm-hmm.
statement that you made to yourself is counter the thought that keeps returning. I don't know if this makes any sense.
There is sense in what you say. I have no bad questions.
Yes, I know. Hmm.
The the conscious thought, yeah, when you function consciously, it is full awareness, right?
Yes.
When your mind drifting off on a regular basis, and you not, because you control your mind. So if your mind strays often and goes all over, it's not necessarily that you're getting the thoughts necessary, unless it's supposed to be that way for you. what would tend to happen is that you need to put yourself in a situation where you are always in control.
How you do
You
that?
follow?
How do you do that?
I'm, I'm working on that, you know. I'm working on that. And sometimes I would call on some divine assistance to help me. But
Well, the divine assistance always there to help. Someone was asking how you do it. Well, this is the reason why we doing the live chats, because everybody wants to achieve that, where they would be in a conscious state and recognize that you are in control of you. Because we tend to live where anything goes, and we tend to blame, and there's no reason to blame because there is nothing happening outside of ourselves. Say it again. Nothing happening outside of ourselves. Yeah. You create your pathway, but your pathway is always based within your conscious experience, as Katrin was just pointing out, as well as your subconscious experience. If you're aware, you would know what's happening on both. If you're unaware, you would only know about the conscious experience and deal with what is coming your way where that part is concerned. And often it will put you in trouble. For example, we were going to discuss baggage tonight, and we're still discussing baggage. But funny how the thing works, because we are going into baggage and the discussion about baggage, and what's been coming up is your understanding of your conscious experience. Because what we know with the conscious experience run along in life, we know that if we do something right or we do something wrong, we identify with karma, we identify with the things that it returns to us, and the eye for the eye, and many different ways that we would express it. All well and fine. All would be correct. But all would be correct based on experiences that you may not be involved in at the time as truth. So you create your pathway, but inherently you are love, goodness, wisdom, yeah?
Yeah.
But you also have negativity and everything that you don't want. Your understanding will bring forth what is best for you. What is best for you is always based in the now. It's not based in tomorrow. Your mind will try to dictate what is based in tomorrow, or it will harp around what happened in the past. Your
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
But the universe working with you in the now. If you're in a conscious state, an aware state, a mindful state, you will be aware that this happening in the now. And there's so many intricate pieces inside of there that you need to be on top of, that you, with your conscious mind, cannot fathom. So then there's something else that's necessary in order for you to function at your best. That is essentially how you would achieve what you want to achieve in life. Because we always try to go on the conscious experience, but the conscious experience, like we were saying, it's limited. If we was fully aware of everything in the conscious experience, then we might have a really good life or a really frustrating life, because you're afraid of everything, or you want to do everything and achieve everything and get greedy. That sound familiar to other people?
Yeah.
Because that's how we live. And they would say, well, the people who they consider to be the 1%ers would operate from a conscious experience built around something. And the ones who not would usually operate unaware of anything. That is exactly how it flows. And even while these things happen and we're moving forward, there's baggage that's collecting on the subconscious side, body, mind, and soul. Because you can't see the baggage in the body until it turns into inflammation or disease. You can't see the baggage in the mind until the stress puts you in a state where you're almost comatose. And well, where the soul is concerned, that is a different discussion for a different period, because that one really, really difficult to grasp. But you are aware of yourself, body, mind, and soul, but we don't really give the understanding of the soul, but the soul knows,
Yeah.
you know. So as you function, it is right and best to try to align body, mind, and soul. But because you have the mind, function on the body and the mind one at a time, just as we were discussing with regards to learning to actually meditate the way that you should. You get the body under control, you get the mind under control, and then they will sync. So that will tend to deal with the baggage aspect of you when you find that alignment. Until you find that alignment, you will be physically trying to remove baggage, or should I say, physically and mentally trying to remove baggage, and you can't move on. You really can't sit down there and say that you could recall every step of the way throughout your entire life, every minute of every day, what you did to create something that may be blocking your ability to connect to what you want in the future. That's our job. We always doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody who is perfect at it. None.
So,
It's a journey through life.
in other
Upon that.
words, to let go of the baggage is to become true to yourself, to know yourself.
To know who you are, you would start to shake the baggage. But even while you know who you are, there's still steps and levels with regards to knowing who you are. So you may be conscious that you are in control. But even while you're conscious that you are in control, you're still privy to the influence of everything else, because you haven't realized that you are the master of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So, could I ask another question on behalf of someone? How
Sure.
do you know who you are? How do you get into what steps to take to kind of get to know who you are?
Well, as we go in step by step, week by week, that's gonna come up, because that is a intricate design. The first part of it is the releasing of the baggage, is the conscious, because we tend to live in a space where we want all the results now. I need this now. But the universe don't function like that. So you, in getting yourself aligned, will align yourself completely, that you could remove and achieve and know. The first part is accepting,
Uh,
and then the journey really starts.
so the
You
first
know,
part is accepting that you have baggage and realizing what your baggage is, or just accepting that you have baggage.
accepting that you are.
Uh,
Yeah. So everything else
But
that falls in line with you are, that would be correct. Things that's negative and positive.
hmm.
Yeah. That's the important aspect of life. You realize that I am. And because of that, you put things in a different perspective. So you start to go with a different framework, a different guide. It's difficult if you're not putting anything into practice, because it requires daily practice. I mean, for every single one of us there right now, there was a time we come into the world and where we are today at whatever age. And since then, you've been practicing a particular way going forward. That's not going to change overnight because you accept. You have to now put a different level of practice in place. And it's not always easy. This was the main reason why we decided to start the befitment journey and try to see if people could get there. It wasn't about we trying to make a select group. There's nothing like that. It's just that get everyone's mind where it should be, because it's to the benefit of all. If you are the most that you can be, you will be the most for everyone, and everything tends to follow because it comes from you.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you get to the I am? So, like for people who don't know and don't really know themselves, right? Because it took a lot of really soul searching and kind of releasing and forgiving and of yourself, at least for me, to kind of get to the I am, to know who I am, to the point that I am this or I am that. But for so many people, how do you get to the I am? So is that about I am in terms of forgiving yourself, learning how to love yourself, learning, so how could you break down the I am?
This is where the challenge lies. And I'm trying to keep the conversation along the lines that we supposed to walk tonight, which is in baggage. So I would identify what you're saying there with regards to baggage. In the understanding I am, there's only peace, there's harmony. Everything has order. You're being obedient to who you truly are and not defiant because you're trying to do things in a particular way. So everything flows naturally. But in order to experience that, you have to release a lot of things that you think you know. Because what you think you know is why you where we are now in our lives, everyone. That's why we're there. So you get to the junction where there is a difference that could happen, but it depends on how you interpret that today. There's I am, and there's what you know. Truth is, in order to fully comprehend I am, there is no understanding of what you know.
Hmm.
There is a greater wisdom already inherently in you that you embrace. The thing is that there are so many books and YouTube videos and all these things that would guide you along a particular path, but they don't really give you the intricate spaces that needs to be filled. And the truth is, if you spend time daily, in meditation or whatever you could find to truly find humility and peace during your day, you will be making that journey. Now, there, just like everything else, there's difficulty involved. It's because while you're doing it, remember we said have no negative or positive, things gonna come to distract you. You're gonna get distractions on a regular basis. And these distractions, based on how we deal with it, is how the baggage starts again, body, mind, and soul always pulling in more and more. And the baggage, just like anything else that you accumulate after a time, if you put so much clothes on top of the bed, I will fold them one day, I will fold them one day, I don't have any time right now. Eventually, you wouldn't even see where the pillows are.
That's why I leave a
You know,
chair in the room for clothes.
yeah, well, that's what most do. We put it on the chair. So it becomes a difficult experience, and we kind of find a tardy way that we deal with ourselves. So we just accept life at the mind value and believe, well, everything I think and whatever I do, that's exactly what it is. The truth is, that's exactly what it is, but that's exactly what it is on the conscious experience, as uh, Catherine mentioned earlier. But this is how the subconscious gathers all the clothes on top of the chair or the bed that soon we cannot see our way, and we give in to the things that impeding our growth and our development, our achievement of purpose and well-being and understanding completely who we are, because that's all that's required to be understood when you accept the journey of I am, the understanding of who you are. So all along, as we pointed out, all along baggage is there. Because the only baggage that really matters is not the relationships, not the money that keep evading, is really what's happening body, mind, and soul. And body, mind, and soul is what's causing the blockage that you're trying to get out of your life going forward. So essentially, it's up to you to start to scrub. Now remember that there's things so deep. that you can't scrub it off. Handle that later on. That is where the ones to meditation will come. But for the conscious mind, who is aware that I have been walking around with all these burdens that block me, your duty is then not to run out to try to forgive everybody or ask forgiveness from everybody or, all the things that you tend to see on television. You don't have to do that. What you need to do is center you, because you'll be functioning in a space where you emitting energy and vibration. As I mentioned, energy and vibration, guess what the topic is next week?
Energy and
So
vibration.
so you'll be functioning in a space where it's just energy and vibration. And energy and vibration is what you would use to attract and repel. It's hard to pinpoint for a lot of people that even though you're watching a physical being with eyes and nose and whatnot, you're just a mass of energy. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
And because on a conscious level, we unaware that it is only a mass of energy. It function and then it lay down and the energy turn into a different form and move on. That's exactly what it is. Right? That's what life is. That we put so much emphasis into saying that is life without truly understanding what life is. So your focus is to center that energy so that it works for you and not against you. Because the energy belongs to you. And the energy is part of a complete holistic experience. So in order to deal with that baggage, that energy there, like I say, you don't have to clean anything. Not yet. You get it aligned first and foremost. Recognize that this is energy. Put it together with everything else that goes on around and try to maintain focus where it is. After that happens, then what would take place is that you would end up in a situation where coming to you would be the same ideas and imagination that we were speaking about earlier. Things would come to you while you're doing it, while you're living. Things would come to you and you function and you do them. You might say, it come in my mind, or I get vaps, things, things like that. You just function along the pathway that is sending. Don't try to correct it and believe whether it's right or wrong. Function along it. But when it comes to you, before you act, you make sure it aligns with your center so that you don't go out there and create more baggage. Because you might do something that you will perceive to be positive. But what you're doing is that you're creating baggage because it's something that you did not need, or you went to do something to assist someone who didn't need help because at that stage in their life, they need to go through a certain level of pain so that they could find their way. And you decide that out of the goodness of your heart, which is what you tell yourself it is, that is actually something else. You decide to go help, or you want to do good by telling off somebody who need the help. Choose your actions, your words, everything else governed with order and not out of I just doing what I feel I should do. Because that doesn't work for you. It works against you in so many ways. And it brings on so many issues that make life difficult on a regular basis.
How do you discern the if it's you, like this is you supposed to act, or if you're being directed by God to act? Because it's so many times you're like, okay, I'm just doing this, and then it's like, well, that's what I thought I had to do.
I like the question. And I like the question because you mentioned, for some of us, our understanding will be the higher power, or it would be the universe, or however we understand it. And our reality is that we are part of the whole. So, understanding what is best going forward. Understanding what is best going forward means that you must be aligned. If you're not aligned, you'll be making decisions based on what your mind thinks. And often what your mind thinks will be based within ego. So ego is not this, a show off. Ego is as simple as, let me say something that would make this person feel a particular way. So don't try to rub ego in any particular way. Your life is not about whether you function in ego or not. Understand what I'm saying? It's not whether you function in ego or not. We spend too much time trying to judge ourselves and decide whether we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. You, once you centered and you aligned, then you function at best. And what will happen is that you will be functioning in order with everything that's necessary for you going forward. You follow? So then you would no longer need to try to figure out whether I am functioning in ego or I am functioning good. But it's a process. It's not an easy process because there's so many things that were lost to our understanding as we move through life. From child, when we knew it all, to when we get older and we no longer know. So that's exactly what will be taking place. There's so little for you to do in the understanding of who you are. But because there's so little to do, you could then focus on what you need to do. That's where purpose is concerned. So
I'm
your life will become different, less baggage. Because there will be baggage, but you want to minimize that, bring it down to as little as possible. Go ahead, you're asking a question. Your question
I'm
was
glad you went there because I found myself in a situation today, and as I was speaking to the person, I found, how to put it, in truthfulness, I think I got fed up of listening to the person because every so often I encounter the person and they would raise the same issues. And I would try to say, well, so and so. And they would say, I want to do so and so. I'd say, well, why aren't you doing what you always say you want to do? And then today I found myself speaking, but I could sense I wasn't
wasn't there.
calm in how I was speaking. I was speaking almost from a point of, I'm fed up of this conversation with you. And when I drove away, I said, I, I hope the person didn't really feel that I was just fed up of them, but I could feel myself fed up of hearing the same, I want to do so and so, but I want to do so and so, but. And I'm saying, well, pass the but and do it. You can't just sit in the I want to but. And then I said, but Catherine, yeah, I hope you wasn't pretending you're better than the lady or something like that. But I was kind of fed up today. And it led me to a point where perhaps I don't want to encounter her next time I see her. I'd rather
Can I
just
tell
say
you
hi and run.
how easy it is? So you trying to decipher whether you did something right or wrong, baggage.
Yeah,
If
that's
you were
why I said
supposed to
glad you
deal
went
with
there.
if you were supposed to deal with the person at all and you didn't, baggage. If you were supposed to do what you were supposed to do and not be around the woman at all, baggage. You understand how that's how it works because it wasn't allowing itself to flow as freely as possible. In the free flow, you would not have the baggage. That's where the problem lies. Yeah. So it's not for you to try to figure out whether or not. we established in the last workshop that we had recently, the understanding was there for everyone to recognize, because you want to function around your feelings as a guide. So if you feel fear, if you feel that, because that's exactly what happened there, you started to fear. You started to feel, am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? I don't know. I shouldn't feel this particular way. The feeling is just a guide to let you know what your response is in the moment. That's what a feeling is. The dictionary can't tell you that. No one could tell you that, but wisdom knows. That is what a feeling is. And it's up to you to dictate what you do next with regards to the feeling. The easiest way to go with feelings is allow the feeling to function. You feel it, you maintain the feeling, you recognize what you're feeling, not based off of a box that you're created through your life all the time that would make you feel that you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing and start to get in different mental states. What you want is the feeling to be there, and then as the feeling is there and you identify the feeling, then you know what is the next move. The next move would come based on the fact that you allow the conversation to continue. When the conversation continues, it is going to it will provide an opening for you to leave, or a pathway to have a deeper conversation. That is how life flows. But we tend to throw it off because you already have your mind set on something that you, am I doing it? Let me just escape. And what happens is that we make decisions and we accumulate baggage, as we were speaking about, and things become difficult. So you might present yourself, because life flows in patterns, we might find yourself in a situation that is similar for you with someone else. And then you end up in a burden that you didn't want. Because you would feel, no, I am being a burden to this person, or I'm not being a burden, or whatever is the case may be, based off of something that you would have done last week, week before, or whatever is the case. I mean, there's always put in a quick cycle. But we don't tend to see it or recognize the cycles because we're always out of that conscious and unconscious, subconscious, alignment. You follow? So don't even go into thinking about it either. The art in life, the best way to live is to allow life to flow. Because what is. And we are, you are, I am. You allow it to flow. You don't have to try to control anything. And even when you try to control you, that's a waste of time also. What you want to control is how you respond in the moment and try to manage your life. And that is difficult. I'll say it again, because we're talking about life and baggage. It is difficult to do unless you're truly practicing it on a regular basis, because it's so easy to go to what you do as default.
So Catherine was just supposed to continue talking to the person, and then it would either go where it's either a conversation end, or she would be able to advise the lady if need be.
Yep.
So to speak.
The conversation, it would continue going, or it may stop abruptly because something would happen. The phone would ring, so that she, in her consciousness, in her conscious awareness, her phone will ring. If she is aware that this is the next path, she could utilize that phone to take the conversation in a different, not the conversation, but the escape, sorry.
Which is what I did when her supervisor came and told her, attend to that man. I just fled.
Right. And you, you fled. And you don't use the experience to feel any guilt, any sort of rap inside of it. You don't want to wrap anything in it. You just allow it to flow. For every single thing that we do every day of our life, that's where we end up in trouble. You end up in
I
trouble
guess what
because you interpret. Go ahead.
I guess what happened between Saturday and now is I ended up having a conversation with somebody
Mm-hmm.
and who told me that basically I just open my mouth and I tell people anything I feel like telling them, and I should not be so bold faced. So that kind of sat baggage, that kind of sat, and I was now double checking, triple checking, side checking every single thing. So,
So
yeah,
that would be based off of what you were told, because there would be times when you would have to do that. You would have to articulate yourself strongly to someone, and it's totally fine. You don't have to feel any way about it. And if you're feeling some way about it, well, then you know there are areas that you need to look at in your life, because you get to see live and direct areas that have baggage. You follow?
follow.
So I know some people joined late, later than I welcome the last set. So again, welcome to the new persons who
Hmm.
logged in, and the conversation tonight is baggage. In case you were a bit lost. So does anyone have any more questions as it pertains to the topic? Because I know a lot of people didn't ask anything. Yeah.
Could we talk about like baggage in relationships in terms of understanding if you have a spouse, a significant other, whatever, how to not let allow them to become your baggage, right? Because I mean, there's no wrong, so they're doing what they think is best for themselves. But you as the person, how do you not take that to heart? And especially when you grow up having you was raised a certain way, um, that person is only doing the best that they could. How do I, as a person, let go of that and do what is right for me and stand up for me and not feel guilty standing up for me?
Like we say, this is a journey. In life, in your life, there is only you. Yeah?
Yeah.
First and foremost. But you share your experience with others. And when we decide to take up, a husband or a wife or a partner for that matter, what takes place is that we are sharing our space with that person. Our space meaning mind, body, and soul solely for this experience and the experience of life. So what takes place is that even though you're sharing the space, you still function as you and they function as who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that everything else that you were doing throughout life, you would still be doing. If you make a conscious decision to try to change certain ways about yourself to satisfy the relationship that you have with the person, that could work for you or against you, depending on what it is. Essentially, what you're trying to do is find a way that you could have a correlated experience with the person. What we tend to do is that we go into it and we would like the person to change to satisfy our world. Or if we have a weaker frame of mind, we try to change our world to satisfy theirs.
Hmm.
All these things just as we discussed baggage. So what would take place is that in a relationship, if you are given of yourself completely and the person is not, you will always get universal guidance, whether it come in your dreams, whether it come from friends, from persons who care about you. It may even come from your children that this is not the pathway for you. If you choose to believe it or not, that's up to you. But even before you identify whether you choose to believe it or not, what you need to do is ensure that the messages are received to someone, meaning you, who is centered. Because if you're not centered, you could blow anything out of proportion and not interpret what is coming to you in the most ideal way for you to go forward. You never, in any relationship, you never have to be concerned about the other person, because the other person just sharing a space. If you are renting a two-bedroom room, a two-bedroom house, you have your room, they have their room, and then you have shared facilities. You don't really have them all over your room doing whatever inside of your room unless you choose to. That is essentially what happens in the relationship. But what happens is that we go into it with compartments and beliefs and all these different things, and we establish ways to function, which is not the best way for the person who in the relationship with us, whether that person is positive or negative. And based on that their own interpretation, they would then move to either reflect, deflect, to make poor choices based off of our decisions, or good choices, solid choices, positive choices based off of our decisions. In any relationship that you're in, whether it's with lovers, children, colleagues, there is only you. There is no one else. There is only you. And you are functioning in a shared space. So you function in the shared space in harmony. But there is no harmony for the external if there is no harmony on the internal side. So if you are dissatisfied with who you are going to reflect that into any relationship. And they would return to you exactly as they interpret based on their own understanding. And that's where everything tends to go a little haywire. So going forward with regards to relationships and baggage, you can see exactly why so many things, because when we discuss baggage, we discuss the ones that we could feel as well as the ones that accumulating on the subconscious level that we're unaware of. So you decide, well, all right, use an example, you're walking away from this one, you could understand now why you would walk into one that's so similar, because you have the pattern already built into your life based off of your own understanding of what you put into your field. Meaning, you, that's what the subconscious sees, you function in a relationship with someone else. So these are the patterns that you want because of how you interpret stuff. And this is just clearly how it goes. Like we discussed earlier, is so many areas in life that because we don't tend to it as they should be tended, we end up in a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And we tend to look for blame and try to file blame and bring our limits just by regular things that we do without recognizing how much it affects us going forward. So where relationships concerned, baggage, the easiest thing to deal with is recognize that you are in a shared space. That's what it is. You are in a shared space. It doesn't mean that you have to treat the person bad. No, because if you understood who you are and know who you are and where you stand in life, then you will be reflected in the relationship. So the person will feel the same love that you have for you.
Mm.
That's the understanding of love. We always believe we need to show someone love. We need to show someone love. You love you. When you love you, your love will be reflected to someone else. And you will know exactly what you should do without trying to. Sorry? Question?
I'm just going through a moment of
When you happy that you are, when you center yourself completely, just as you were discussing prior, when you center yourself, you will give that love. There's nothing that you need to prove. There's nothing that you need to demonstrate so that you can have acceptance. Nothing like that exists outside in the real universe. That only exists in your mind where you believe you need to do certain things and I need to do this and I need to do that. You don't need to do anything. You need to love you and you will then flow and be guided exactly as you should love others.
But you need to love you and not feel guilty for loving you and doing what is best for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. There is no guilt in you loving you. No guilt. What we tend to do is because we tend to think and overthink and all these different negative thoughts will come into our head, we believe that we're doing something wrong by loving us first. Because the world says you love the other person. But how does that work? That doesn't work. That cannot work. Because you were born as you.
Mm-hmm.
You wasn't born as someone else. So you must love you and love you completely. And then you will realize that I could now love the job I do, love my children the way I should, love my spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, whomever, the way I should. It becomes a different understanding of life. But the reality is, your understanding will be based on a different principle. And it's a principle that you cannot and read and try to fathom. You have to grasp it from accepting something that is different, greater, beyond your experience. And then when you do that, you open yourself up to a greater understanding. That would slowly is the key word, change your perspective so that your interpretation of life would be different in all areas.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to what Quinton was saying, because a lot of times, you always hear this saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And a lot of times when you're empty or you're missing sleep or you're missing whatever it is you're missing currently from your life, when people approach you for anything is a very different response from if you're well rested and you had lunch and you had your cup of
Yep,
coffee is a totally, totally different experience. So you have to fill yourself first, and make sure your cup full. And then when your cup full and it overflowing, is the overflow is to share for everybody else.
that's
You
right.
have to make sure that you are filled. Because when your cup quarter and somebody wants a sip, you know
There's a
how
problem.
there is a lot of problems, and our response is a lot of times when our cup's not filled, it doesn't be very amicable or kind at all. It does be very hasty and yeah. So I know Gillis had a question.
Sure.
Yeah, good night, all.
Good night.
Hi.
The question was, how does positive relate to baggage?
Positive response.
Yes.
Positive response with regards to baggage. It happens when you do the positive response based in ego. So what takes place is that if you tell yourself that I am going to do this from a centered space, from a reflection of I am, there is only benefit. If you decide to do something positive for someone else based around your own ego, there is baggage.
All right, thank you.
So, and you was talking about, like, let's say you're in a relationship, and you know the relationship come to end, but you didn't really, let's say in a sense, learn like your
Yeah,
purpose in the relationship. That's baggage. So therefore, if you're holding on to that, you tend to attract more of that. That's why you'll go into another relationship similar to that.
yeah. Because your subconscious still seeking the solution for you. That's what takes place. So even while we driving forward in the conscious space, the subconscious doing a lot of work. And the subconscious is connected to the soul. Remember we discussed the soul before? The subconscious connected to the soul and the soul experience, and the soul always knows. So whether you're making decisions that are not working for you, in order to find the alignment, you will continue to find that type of person or that type of situation. And often what takes place is that our conscious experience unaware of it completely. So we just say the same thing happening again, the same thing happening again, and you get rid of that person and you go back into another one that's very similar. Because you're not learning exactly what it is. And that works for every area of life. You know, even for the friends, the friends that you have, even for the money that you might seek, every single aspect of life, because like we mentioned before, life works in patterns. I'm not talking about your pattern of behavior. I'm talking about the placement of things around you from the universe. Patterns.
So in order to do better, you have to be better.
Everything starts from there because nothing exists in the physical. We create it. So the easiest way to create it is to be. And then you do.
Because the thing is, you see, those two, and I know we're going to talk about this next week, but just those two situations, being and doing, is two different energies. Because I remember last week or week before, we spoke about the different energy of baggage, and our baggage carries a different energy. So that would tie into that. In terms of attracting the same person and it's different people with same behaviors.
And we'll discuss that, as best as we can in an hour next week with regards to energy and frequency.
Yeah.
And where you center that.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for joining in.